Namaskar, dear seekers. I'm happy to see you again in our live stream. Your questions, our answers. So my name is Dejan, and I've been doing spiritual practice with SSRF for around 24 years. And I've started my spiritual practice as a beginner, and over the years I tried to do different steps of spiritual practice that are recommended and that we may talk in the live stream today, such as chanting, attending spiritual meetings, doing service, and so on. Just a short introduction about SSRF. SSRF is a non-profit organization that is registered in Europe, in Germany, Croatia, Australia, and USA. And SSRF has two main objectives. The first objective is to educate society about the spiritual dimension and how it impacts our lives. And the second objective is to guide seekers, those who are desirous of growth on their spiritual journey, to help them to grow faster. So seekers like yourselves. And SSRF completes its mission by having a website, which together with the YouTube channel has over 350,000 visitors and views each month. And also there are 800 articles on the website, translated in 23 languages. And also we have live chat service on the website where you can ask any questions. We have received maybe around 10,000 questions in the last 1 year. So many people are asking questions, and our seekers who are volunteers answer those questions. SSRF is an all-volunteer organization, so all that we do is on a volunteer basis, whoever helps in the mission, as it is part of our spiritual practice. And in addition to the articles, we also have weekly spiritual meetings, 50 weekly spiritual meetings, which are free of charge online in, I think, 7 or 8 different languages. So those who want to practice spirituality in a deeper way, they attend those spiritual meetings and they get charged with divine consciousness, positive energy in those meetings. So this session today, for those who are coming the first time, it's an open session. You can ask any questions about spirituality, spiritual practice, spiritual healing, any obstacles you may have, anything that's in your mind about how you can feel better or do your spiritual practice in a better way. You can share. We are streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Telegram. So in all those channels you can share, and seekers who help with the moderation, they're going to show the questions on the screen so I can also take a look. Just to share that SSRF has been founded by the blessings of His Holiness Dr. Atable, who is a guru of the highest order. And we also do some research together in cooperation with the Maharshi University of Spirituality in India. And we published jointly this research in over 100 scientific conferences around the world. So usually when we start these sessions, we start with 2 minutes of chanting. Chanting is a practice of repeating a divine name. And it helps us to concentrate so we can get more clarity and more benefit of this session. So we will start with 2 minutes of chanting. There is one chant that we will play. It's called Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. In translation, it means Om, I surrender to the divine sustenance principle. So you can relax, sit comfortably, and listen to this chant, close your eyes, and try to repeat it in your mind. And after a couple of minutes, we will start with the session.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Namo.
Okay, so we can start with the questions. I'll just take a look if there are any questions already. Okay, we have the first question. When I try to do Manas Puja of Gurudev, I get very bad images, like I'm pulling his legs or hitting his leg. I feel disappointed to continue with it, and I fail to invoke spiritual emotion. Please guide. So just for others to clarify what it means, she shared Manas Puja of Gurudev. She has a spiritual emotion towards the Guru, and Manas Puja means that we do a offering or a ritual in our mind towards the Guru, some sort of devotion. So when she usually such efforts help us to develop spiritual emotion. We can practice it with any form of that we are devoted to. In her case, she is devoted to the Guru. So it is nice, Shyamala, that you are trying to practice this. It shows your desire to develop spiritual emotion and to connect to God in this way. Now, here what happens is you share that you get very bad images, like pulling the legs. So this is not logical that someone who has that type of devotion and who wants to be close to the Guru to have such thoughts in the mind. So it means that these thoughts and these images are coming from the negative energies who are trying to obstruct this process. So when we have spiritual emotion, basically what is spiritual emotion? Spiritual emotion is intense awareness of God's presence. So if we are concentrated, if there are no obstacles, if we are free to experience that, then we experience deep spiritual emotion. But if something gets in the way, like these bad images, then we are not able to have that connection. We can also have some doubts, or we can have a bad feeling, a feeling of guilt. So that is one way the negative energies try to obstruct our spiritual practice. But not to worry, just like they have some tools to try to obstruct what we feel, we also have some tools to overcome those obstacles. And God ultimately helps in any situation and can overcome any attack from negative energies. So at that time, we can stop and we can pray that let these obstacles of images be removed. Let them be destroyed with divine energy. Please, I want to connect to you, but this is getting in the way. You only help me to have a clear connection to you. And we can also chant for a few minutes until the negative energy reduces, and we can try again that effort to do the worship in the mind. Another thing that we can do is we can do something called nyas when we chant. Nyas is a method of healing where we hold our fingers together, and when we chant, that energy from the fingers is pointed like a laser. So we can hold it, let's say if we get some images, we can point it in front of the forehead chakra, 2 minutes away like this, and we chant so that it will charge that chakra and maybe remove any impressions, negative impressions that are coming to the mind. Hope this helps. So we'll go to the next question. I hope it helps others if they have some obstacles of that type. If anyone else has anything to ask, please ask. Mira said, hello, we met in Malmo last year. How do you do? My question is, Sanskrit is a holy language. Is that the same with Latin, Hebrew as well? So it is very nice to hear from you, Myra. It was nice that we met last year in Sweden. We had a nice session, a nice talk also. I'm happy to see you in this session. So when it comes to the languages, every language has certain vibration, and we have actually done a study of comparison and research of the vibrations of different languages. When it comes to Sanskrit, it is, when we did the research of all the languages that we tested, I think we took 6 or 7 random languages, including Sanskrit. It had by far the highest level of positivity. So the machines which measure the aura, universal aura scanner, they measured a large positive aura when someone is speaking Sanskrit or if something is written in Sanskrit. So why is this so? Sanskrit is actually the oldest known language, and it is spiritual in nature. So the basis of Sanskrit was spirituality. And many, many holy texts were written in Sanskrit. Many highly evolved people used to speak in Sanskrit. And the structure of the language also, if you study it deeper, it is a very organized structure, how the letters are formed, how the sentences are formed. It's more a science than an art, spiritual science. So when you repeat the words in Sanskrit, especially the mantras, it generates a lot of positive energy. So that is why when different mantras are done, then Sanskrit is usually used, because that brings the most positive energy in that ritual that is being performed. Now, most of us, we don't speak Sanskrit. So it is not like that now we need to learn Sanskrit. I'm just explaining, answering to your questions to explain why there is so much positivity in Sanskrit. But in our case, let's say we do chants, they are in Sanskrit. So then it is preserving that positivity that is very high in that language. And in everyday life, we talk in our own language, but we can try to keep our speech pure, which words we use. Of course, swear words, they generate negative energy. Gentle words create positive energy. So it also depends on our attitude and our spiritual emotion. If we talk about spiritual things, it generates more positive energy. If we talk about some material things, it doesn't generate positive energy. So I hope this answers your question. So Vardhan Kumar asks, what is the benefit of celibacy in spirituality? So celibacy is practiced on different paths. Usually it is practiced on the paths like yogic paths, like Hatha Yoga, the path of deliberate rigor. And it has some benefit that if we gain control over the desires, then we can more easily gain control over the mind, because all desires come from the mind. And also some energy is saved in terms of not utilizing the energy for sexual thoughts or in that direction, because many such thoughts, they take a lot of energy. But it is not a must to be a spiritual seeker or to progress spiritually. Actually, on the other paths, usually celibacy is not required. We can continue living our regular life and continue to do spiritual practice. Because the energy of the spiritual practice that we get, for example, through chanting or through performing spiritual service or to reading holy books, that is a high amount of energy. So it supersedes the energy that may be lost with these kind of desireful thoughts. But of course, anything in excess is not good also. So if such any kind of desire is excessive and overpowers us, that we constantly think about it, we're not able to control it, then we can increase our spiritual practice. And there are some certain tools that we can use to reduce these types of desires if they're excessive and causing us disturbance or more loss of energy. So Swati asked, in ashram, how do seekers balance their individual spiritual practice along with their seva, service? Which qualities we need to adapt so that we can also develop these qualities and focus on practice? This is a very good practical question, Swati. So in ashram is a spiritual center, and SSRF also has an ashram in Germany, and the Maharshi University of Spirituality has an ashram in India. So some of our seekers and some people who came to our website went to those ashrams. You can also find the information on our website for the workshops at the ashram. Our seekers can paste it in the chat. But basically in ashram, people who live there, seekers, spiritual seekers, they practice spirituality throughout the day. And there they need to balance both their individual spiritual practice and the collective spiritual practice, which is to do service for society. So usually how it is done is that the individual spiritual practice is the foundation, if the individual spiritual practice is strong, then our service, our collective spiritual practice, has more output and is effective. So let's say, give you an example. Let's say someone doesn't do their own spiritual practice, but tells others how they will do their spiritual practice. Then his words will not have divine consciousness in it, because he's talking about things that he has not practiced. So it is not coming from a personal experience. It's more something just learned in the books. But if someone practices spirituality, then they're able to talk about it much more deeply, with more understanding. And there is divine consciousness in their voice. So then it gives more impact on the listener. So all the spiritual seekers who are in the ashram, they do that balance of doing individual spiritual practice and collective spiritual practice, service. How you can do it at home, as you ask how to develop those qualities, one thing that helps is planning. So if we develop the quality of planning our day, for example, we can plan it that we start the day with, let's say, 30 or 45 minutes of sitting down chanting. Then we can write a couple of mistakes or do a couple of auto-suggestions. Those are the tools that we use to change for the better. It's a process called personality defect removal. The seekers can paste it in the chat so you can see what it is about later. So that is the individual part of practice, and we pray also. Then during, let's say we go to work, during work we keep chanting, we keep praying intermittently. Then when we come home, we can do a saltwater remedy, which is the remedy that helps to remove negativity from the mind and the body, which we may collect at our workplace or going outside. Then we can do some house chores. Then again, we do some individual practice, and then we do our service. This is just one example. Everyone has a different pattern and a different plan. Let's say someone who doesn't work, let's say staying at home and taking care of the house, their plan will be different. But the point is to make a plan and to try to follow it. If we do like that, then the output of our spiritual practice is much higher, and we are able to have that balance. Prakash Bandare is asking why we chant Krishna's name and not our Guru's name. So usually Gurus they don't share to chant their name. They share to chant a specific name or a specific Guru mantra, because they know which principle we need to progress spiritually, which principle we are lacking, and which principle will help us to heal or to grow. So in today's times, this principle of that we suggest two chants to people. One is that they can chant as per their religion of birth. So if it's Buddhist, they chant Om Mani Padme Hum. If it's Muslims, they chant Ya Ali Allah. Hindus, they chant the family deity. Christians, they chant either Ave Maria or Hail Jesus, depending on the denomination, and so on. Or if someone is not religious, they can chant a universal chant, which is the Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And that chant is related to the principle that is very active on earth at this time, in this transition period on earth that we live in, that gives us the maximum protection and maximum benefit for spiritual progress. So in these few years, that principle is very active. So if we repeat that name, we are able to imbibe that principle. So we can go to the next question then. This is a question from Vijay. Is death predetermined? Or it can be postponed by spiritual practice. So there are three types of death. There is a probable death, and definite death. So in a life, in person's life, there can be a situation, let's say once in life, that there is a probable death. That means that there is a situation that there is a chance of dying, but it can be overcome with some rituals, some part of spiritual practice. Then there is that can be overcome in, let's say, I don't remember exactly, there's an article on the website, but I think up to 70% of the cases it can be overcome. The article explains it in more detail. Then there is a death which is more serious and more difficult to overcome, but it can be overcome with more intense spiritual practice. And there is the definite death, which cannot be changed. That is what is written as per destiny, and the exact hour and exact second is already predestined. So that definite death cannot be changed. So in one's life, someone may have one situation of probable death, one or two probable death, one situation of death, and of course one definite death. So to answer your question, can it be postponed by spiritual practice? Yes. The probable death and death can be overcome with spiritual practice. The definite death, no. So Effin asked, I cook and do chores every day, but I can't balance to do spiritual healing. It feels 24 hours is not enough. So it is what we spoke, I think, with one other seeker who asked a question about how to balance our spiritual practice. So it is, one thing is planning, to plan the spiritual healing in our day. It doesn't have to be one segment. Let's say that you were giving guidance to do 2 hours of healing per day. So it does not have to be that I have to sit and do 2 hours at once. I can break it down into 4 sessions of 30 minutes, or 2 sessions of 1 hour, or 1 session of 45 minutes, the other one on 1 hour 15 minutes. It's flexible, but it should be put in our plan. And another thing is that we should give it priority. So if we leave spiritual healing for the last thing in the day, we put it on the last priority, usually it will not happen. Or if it happens, it will be more difficult, because the energy at night, as the night approaches, the energy in the environment becomes more negative. So it is good to start the day with spiritual healing sometime, and then to do it in different sessions throughout the day. Then also we can do at nighttime, let's say 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. But we should have completed some part of the healing earlier in the day. So we can keep those healing segments in the plan and plan other things around them. Plan the chores and the cooking around the healing slots. And 24 hours is not enough. We all feel sometimes that 24 hours is not enough. But actually, with improvement in planning, 24 hours becomes enough. Because if we plan as per priorities, and we don't overplan, we don't put too many things in a day, we stretch the plan, something today, something Tuesday, something Wednesday, something Friday, then it is possible to accomplish the tasks during the day. But this is practiced. In our spiritual meetings, sometimes we talk about planning. So the guiding seekers, the conductors, they help to explain this process. So PI wonder, asked, I think I suffer from heavy destiny and distress. I try to complete my prescribed healing, but still I feel I'm not moving forward in physical life for the last 5-6 years. I feel God is by my side, but I also have a lot of doubts and feel depressed sometimes. So here there are a few things. Pi, I think it's Pi. So there is destiny and distress. There is not moving forward in physical life, feeling God by side, and feeling depressed sometimes, a lot of doubts. So one thing about moving on in the physical life, what happens in our physical life, in our material life, is mainly influenced by destiny. So what is in destiny, that will happen. 65% of our life is ruled by destiny. So sometimes, despite the best efforts, the situation in life remains the same. But with spiritual practice, some things can improve, and we also develop the ability to deal better with the situations in the life. So it gives us more capacity to deal with things in life. Also, when it comes to doubts and feeling depressed, here it can be due to negative energies. So then we can do healing, make sure to complete the chanting sessions as prescribed during the day. And it can also be due to some impressions in the mind. We have different impressions in the mind. Some we call defects, some we call qualities. Defects cause us unhappiness, qualities cause us happiness. So if we have, let's say, a defect of expectations, that we expect how things should be, and then we get disappointed when things don't happen that way, then we end up being unhappy. On the other hand, if we have quality of acceptance, then situations in life don't impact us as much, because we're accepting, okay, whatever is happening due to my destiny. I will focus on my spiritual practice and keep improving, like that. So that is also something that we can work on. And when it comes to destiny, if destiny is mild, it can go away with a moderate spiritual practice. If let's say that's 3-4 hours of spiritual practice during the day. If destiny is more medium, then we need 8-10 or more hours of spiritual practice per day. If destiny is severe, even the maximum spiritual practice that we do cannot overcome it. Then what is needed is to get a grace of a guru or a saint. And we usually get that when our spiritual practice is going well, and if we have good potential to grow spiritually. So ultimately the solution is to keep doing spiritual practice, to accept the situation, to see it as part of destiny, to do at action level what we can to resolve the situations, and also keep doing a spiritual practice. Jörg Schumacher asked how to remove negative energy from black ones. The being works with powder. Jörg, if you can just maybe clarify what it means from the black ones and working with powder, then we can try to answer that question. Okay. So Prakash asked, I'm a seeker from Satara. My spiritual practice is doing good, but sometimes my sadhana is not good and I'm not chanting. Please guide me. So, dear seekers, does it happen to you also that sometimes your spiritual practice is good and sometimes your spiritual practice is not good? Does it happen to others? So, actually, this is common, especially in the beginning of spiritual practice. We have more fluctuations. The spiritual practice happens, it doesn't happen. When it happens better, then the quality goes down. It is a normal process. process. Spiritual growth is not just a straight line like that. It is more like this. So a few steps forward, a couple of steps back. But as we progress spiritually, this stabilizes more, and we are able to have more continuity and stability in our spiritual practice, and those dips are less, those fluctuations are less. Once someone reaches 60% spiritual level, which is a spiritual level at which one comes out of the cycle of reincarnation, doesn't have to get born. On our website, you can see different articles about spiritual level, what it means. Then after that spiritual level, there is more stability. So the goal is basically to grow and reach higher spiritual levels. And to keep persevering. One very important quality of a seeker, spiritual seeker, is perseverance. So sometimes I'm doing good and I'm chanting, sometimes I'm not doing good and I'm not chanting. So what we can do at that time is, during the time when our practice is going well, we can express gratitude for it. And at the other times when it is not going well, we can see what small next step I can do. Okay, so it is 5 o'clock, I have not done any chanting today. Okay, what I can do now? I should not go into a negative state to think, oh, I wasted my whole day, now there is no chance. To remain positive and to say, okay, let me at least do 15 minutes. So I sit down and do my 15 minutes of chanting. Then after those 15 minutes are completed, we can do additional 15 minutes. So yeah, so like that, small steps, and then we will feel better. Okay, I've completed 15 minutes. Now I've completed another 15 minutes. Then we feel positive, and we learn from it. We learn from all those days that we did not do as much spiritual practice. Why we didn't do it? What was the obstacle? What blocked us from doing? So for example, let's say on that day I spent few hours going on YouTube and I didn't chant. So now we know what is the obstacle. So I need to work on reducing time on YouTube to make sure that my chanting gets done. Or for example, I was busy with many things and I forgot about it. So that shows that we should improve our planning. Or let's say we have not done chanting that day because we felt that yesterday I did a lot, today I will relax. I'm feeling good, so I don't need to chant. So that can be more like a casual attitude or laziness. Because even if we're good, we should keep chanting. That is at the time when we will collect more positive energy, which will help us for the days when we're not feeling good. So whatever is the issue that is causing a dip or a reduction in our spiritual practice, then we can work on it. Yes, I see that some have said yes, that they have a similar problem. So I hope that this helped everyone. Okay, so Shivani has asked, sometimes while chanting, my ears get blocked. Why would that happen? So can you, Shivani, explain in which way your ears get blocked? Is it that you feel some pressure in the ears, or you feel the ears popping, or you're not able to hear the chant? What happens? Then we can see we can give the answer. Okay, so York has given more explanation about this question, how to remove energy from black ones. The being works with powder. So he says that you say that you meant how to remove negative entities and negative energy. Sometimes I see how a negative being uses powder and puts it over me. And sometimes I see how negative entities go inside of me. You guys can understand that it is a very unpleasant situation, difficult sometimes to manage. So here, one thing is good is that you are able to see what is happening. So that means you have some sixth sense that will help us if we don't know what is happening, that we don't do anything about it. Now you know what is happening, so you want to take action. So how to protect ourselves? Basically, we have different spiritual healing remedies. We have many on our website. One simple one to do is a salt water remedy. It just takes 15 minutes. You need a bucket of water and 2 spoons of salt, and then you sit with your feet in the bucket and keep chanting. That we have a video also how to explain this. Then another thing that you can do is there is something called removing black covering. Around ourselves we collect a black covering through which the negative energies can impact us more. So for that we use our fingers. We can remove the covering by moving the hands like this while chanting. You remove it around the head. Then there is something called nyas, where you can hold like this and chant in different places where you feel some disturbance, some pressure, some negativity. Usually this chakra is affected and some other chakra. And but the main thing is to keep chanting more and praying more. So if you feel that you're attacked, if you see an attack, at that time immediately to pray to God for divine protection and to increase your chanting. You can increase the speed of chanting. Because chanting generates positive energy, which creates a protective shield around us and also purifies any centers of negative energy that there may be in our mind and in our body. If sometimes you need some help with this, you can also write to us on live chat. So seekers who are moderating, you can put a link to the article about spiritual healing, the section about spiritual healing, which shows the different types of spiritual healing. So Swati asks, how will we come to know that the Guru has come in our life? So Guru can come in different ways. Guru can come directly to meet us in person, or Guru can come through someone else. So in my case, how I was looking for a Guru for 5-6 years, or waiting for a Guru, from the age of 17 till the age of 23. And then at one point he came into the life through the teachings of SSRF and through a seeker from India who was one of the disciples of the Guru. So like that Guru came into my life. So like this, even finding information that has been knowledge that has been written by a Guru and we practice it and we gain benefit from it, that means also that Guru has come into our life. So if you're following SSRF, then the teachings of the Guru have come into your life. And Dennis asked, should I chant while driving in a car as a passenger? Yes, definitely we can chant while driving as a passenger. that will help us. We can chant anywhere, any place. I used to chant at work a lot, even during work meetings, or going shopping, or cooking. Any activity can be done with chanting. So otherwise, if we're not chanting, then the mind will start getting busy with different thoughts. But if we chant, the mind is occupied with the chant. So then it gives us more concentration. It gives us feeling of calmness. And we can get different experiences. Actually, when I was in the beginning of spiritual practice, in the first 2 months after doing chanting, I was actually driving a car and I was delivering pizzas as a side job. And there were many pizzas in the car and I was chanting. And then all of a sudden I smelled a big cloud of sandalwood. So at first I was confused, what is this? Where is it coming from? So I looked under my seat. I couldn't find any source of sandalwood. There was nothing burning, nothing there. It was just pizzas. So it should have smelled like pizzas. So I ignored it. I thought I imagined something. And then I came to the restaurant where I worked. And when I entered, I was chanting. When I entered the restaurant, an even bigger cloud of sandalwood smell, fragrance, was around me. So at that moment, I realized, aha, this is a spiritual experience that happened due to chanting. So I experienced this while driving and also while walking. Agung Rama asked how to become always aware in our spiritual life, aware of making efforts in spiritual emotion and introspecting on the defects. So this is very important because awareness is half the battle, and awareness is important in all the aspects of spiritual practice. If we are not aware of something, then we either don't work on it or we don't try to improve on it. Let's say if I'm not aware that my chanting is not happening enough, then I will not make efforts to increase it. So in this case, you want to be aware of efforts to make efforts for spiritual emotion. So you can introspect during the day. You can stop during the day a few times in a day, let's say every 2-3 hours, and you can think, what were my efforts in increasing spiritual emotion? Like a small study. It doesn't take much time, 2-3 minutes, just to think back, okay, how is it going? So, I realized that last 3 hours I did not pray. Okay, so the next 2-3 hours I should increase my prayers. Or I did not express gratitude. Okay, so now next 2-3 hours I will express gratitude. So then again in a few hours we can think back, what happened in the last few hours? Did I practice? Did I not practice? And about awareness and introspection on the defects, that will happen by doing the spiritual practice of personality defect removal, by writing mistakes in the diary. So by writing the mistakes during the week, we become aware which actions we're making incorrectly, what is in our mind, and then we can study it after a couple of weeks and see what is repeating more often, and that will give us an idea what is the pattern, which defect is more active, so that we know to work on it. Let's say if I've written 10 mistakes in the last 2 weeks in my diary, then I look at it and I see, out of 10, 5 are related to anger. So that means that I need to work on anger. Like that, it helps us in this process. So Bhargavi asked, How is bliss different from happiness? When one attains bliss, don't they face worldly problems any longer? Or they face, but can deal better. So, when it comes to bliss and happiness, they're quite different. Happiness comes more from the mind, the five senses, and the intellect. So I eat something nice and I feel happy for some time. Then the quality of that happiness is lower level of food or drinks or smells. Then next higher level is happiness of the mind. Let's say someone is spending time with someone that they care about, that they love, then they feel happy. That is a higher level of happiness compared to the happiness of five senses. And then higher than the mind is the happiness coming from the intellect. Let's say someone is getting happiness from some project, from some research, anything that where the intellect is being used, some study. So that is a higher level happiness. But all of these are limited because they are related to these external bodies of ours, the mind and intellect, which are the bodies around us, subtle bodies. And they have limited duration and limited level of experiencing fulfillment. Whereas bliss is the experience of the soul, and it is unlimited and beyond time. So once we experience bliss, it is that complete feeling of fulfillment. At that time, we don't need anything. We just feel very, very highly happy inside. Now, it is not that once we attain bliss, we permanently have it. Bliss can last for some time or some intensity. Let's say first we experience 5% of bliss for 5 minutes. Then as we grow spiritually, we experience 10% of bliss for 15 minutes, and so on. Later, we experience more and more for longer duration. At higher spiritual levels, let's say if someone reaches a level of Sadguru, 80% spiritual level, then the bliss is very often, almost constant. So it is not, you said, we don't face worldly problems any longer. It is not that we don't face worldly problems. We face everything. Life goes on. But we are, like you said, we are able to deal with it better. If we're in bliss, we are more stable, more fulfilled, and we are not impacted as much by external situations. Aishwarya asked, I fail to keep continuity in my practice. I plan everything a day before, but I always fail to put it in action. How to overcome this? I was giving auto suggestions, but it didn't improve. So it is good that you're trying to plan, but you can see how much you're able to put in practice, because you said, I always fail to put it in action. So you can see how much are you planning. If we plan many things, then it is more difficult to accomplish. Or if we give high targets, then it is more difficult to accomplish. Let's say my current capacity is to chant sitting down 30 minutes a day, but I plan to do 3 hours. Then it is not realistic. I will not be able to accomplish it. Or let's say I want to do 5 auto-suggestions, but I'm doing 3 auto-suggestions. Okay, that may be possible to reach, but maybe not the next day. We can keep a target for this week 3, the next week 4, the week after 5. Step by step, we increase it and we increase our capacity. So like this, you can plan it step by step, and like this it will be possible to increase. So if you're doing 30 minutes of chanting this week, next week try to do 45 minutes. And don't give many targets. Don't give 10 targets for the next week, because again, it will not be possible. Give one target, maybe 2 targets to improve 1 or 2 things, and that's it. And then slowly, step by step, we increase it. We build a house brick by brick, not wall by wall. So one brick on top of another brick, step by step. So Subhashini asked how to avoid negative thoughts during chanting. So it is, sometimes we cannot avoid negative thoughts, because if there is an attack of negative energy, or if there is an impression in the mind of negative thinking, then sometimes we cannot avoid that those negative thoughts will come. But we can do something to reduce it and to control it. So one thing that we can do is to take auto-suggestions. So whenever I start having negative thoughts during chanting, I will become aware of it. I will increase the speed of my chanting. Or we can say I will pray, I will increase the speed of my chanting, and I will remain positive. So this is one auto-suggestion that we can take during the week. In a few sessions during the day, we can repeat this sentence, and then it will help us to reduce the negative thoughts during chanting. And another thing is, this is if it is something coming from the mind. But if it's coming from negative energies, if it's an attack from outside, then at that time we can pray, we can ask God to help us that these negative thoughts are removed. We can keep nyas in front of the forehead, because that's where the negative thoughts usually enter. And we can keep small breaks every 10 minutes to see if there are negative thoughts. How is our chanting? Pray at the time and then continue with chanting. Okay, so Shivani, you clarified about ears popping. Like in a plane, ears get blocked, sometimes popping happens. Chanting happens in the mind. That can be that there is some obstruction of negative energy in the ears. So what you can do is, while chanting, you can hold the nyas like this in front of the ear holes. So as long as you can hold it for a few minutes while chanting. And also removing the black covering from the ears like this. With the fingers, you pray and chant and remove the black covering from the ears. And see if that helps. If it still continues, then you can write to us on live chat. Myra said, enjoying this session. My question is, the world is troubled by environmental problems such as drought, fire, and flooding. How come some places are not, like Sweden? So, as you may have seen, especially in the last 10 years, 20 years, but much more in the last 10 years or so, there is an increase in natural disasters or disbalance in nature. We can see, for example, now, if you read the news, that there was a heat wave and excessive record highs of temperatures in many places on Earth, from America to China to Europe, the north part of the planet this time. So this is because of the increase in the components of Rajatama in the environment, which are the impure spiritual components. It is like spiritual pollution. And increase in the fire principle in the environment. So the fire principle, there is a disbalance because of the negativity is on the rise. So then there is more heat, and that heat causes a lot of problems. In some other places, it's disbalance of water element. So then there is flooding, and there is drought. and it fluctuates. It is not like it is not happening in one place. It may not be happening now, but sometimes later something else may happen in that country. We have seen that it's not the whole planet always affected. It's some parts of the planet. When it changes, then it's another part of the planet. So in some places they can be extreme cold, or it can be problems in society, like protests, social issues. So the negativity in the environment impacts in different ways. It is not just through nature, it also impacts society. So I hope this answers your question. So these were the points for today, because we have come to the end of the session. I hope you enjoyed it. Just to share that we will have these sessions. We plan to have them every week. So the next week it will be another session with Sadhguru Siriakwale. You can see it on our website. You can subscribe there. You can register. And spirituality is a practical science. So any points that we discussed here today, if you put them into practice, you will get the full benefit. And also, please do take a look about the pages of the spiritual tour that is ongoing, and there are new countries added to the tour. Currently, Her Holiness Bhavna is in Indonesia, going to Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Philippines. So if anyone is from those countries, you can take a look on our website where the lectures will be, on the events part of our website, events, local events. And there will also be a tour in Latin America soon. And Sadhguru Syriac will also be in France for some days. So if anyone is from France, you can take a look at our website. So I am very grateful to have had this chance to be here with you today. And I wish you all the best in your spiritual practice. Gratitude to God, gratitude to all of you, and namaskar.